Welcome to Edibles for Wellness, Cooking with Medical Marijuana. This is an important subject that a lot of people have asked me about. So let's dive right in. Previously, we talked about relief for a range of medical marijuana conditions. We talked about how to build your terpene toolbox, matching your chronic condition to the terpenes. We talked about the different methods of consumption. We also talked about journaling, which is very, very important to being able to get the most out of medical cannabis. This week, we're going to talk about edibles. What are they? Why and how do patients use edibles? And some tips and tricks on how to make homemade edibles. So let's dive right into what are edibles. These are cannabis products, whether they're homemade or produced commercially, that can be consumed orally and is processed through the digestive system. They are a wonderful, wonderful set of products. They include chews and gummies. They include chocolate, lozenges, infused butters, teas, baked goods, powders. We can add it to foods. We can add it to drink. Cannabis is been made and been used as an edible product for years and has a lot of flexibility to being able to use it. Now, why would you want to use an edible product? Primarily because it has a 35% absorption rate. What that means is that approximately 35% of the cannabis that you take gets delivered into your body, highly efficient with respect to a type or a route of administration. Also, it's long lasting. It's a product that you can take just before you go to bed, and it'll last the entire night. And we'll talk more about the timing of this, but it's something that's a very big positive to being able to get a good night's sleep or to get a pain relief during the day. It's easy to administer, and it's a great alternative to smoking and vaping. What are the cons? Dosing can be tricky. Bottom line is it can take 3 hours for those edibles to work. And you've got to be very, very careful, because what you don't want to do, take an edible, 15 minutes later it's not working, and take another one, and you're starting to pop these things or use things like Skittles. And trust me, things like brownies, it tastes great. So it's extremely tempting to do that. Usually when you have edibles, you like to snack with them. With this, because it's a medication, be careful that you're taking or you're using this for medical purposes. You basically portion what you're using to being able to make sure that you don't have any negative side effects. And the negative side effects would be what? Paranoia, nausea, maybe anxiety, impaired mobility. That's the bad news. But great news is you're not going to die. Cannabis is extremely safe, and that's an important thing to point out. We talked about how long it takes to work. Typically, it takes anywhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours to work, and work between 4 to 10 hours. What that means is that you have a broad range of products that really can help you sleep through the night and can really help you get a lot of long-lasting effects. And the way it does that is because edibles, which we'll explain in a minute, converts that delta-9, that THC, into what they call 11-hydroxy-THC, which is a very, very, very important and powerful medication for your body. So let's talk about purchasing versus making dispensary. The nice part about it is you can buy from a dispensary your brownies, your cookies, your gummies, your chewies, your lozenges. They are also tested. This is really, really important, because products that come from a clinic that is state licensed typically has been tested at least 3 times. And this is important for the product quality and to know you're getting something that is not going to hurt your body. Also, they're very reliable when you purchase them, because you get the consistency that they're there, and they're very simple to use, and the costs vary widely between dispensaries, but typically they're fairly cost-effective products. Why would you make your own? Well, because what you may want to do is you may want to control the taste and also the ingredients that are in the product. You want to be able to be in control of what you're actually making, and especially if you're used to baking, it's something that's very easy to do. Also, what you want to also do is when you're using or making products, use high quality products. Use something that you know, whether it's the MCT oils, the coconut oils, the cannabis itself. You have the capability of knowing the high quality products that are really there. And so really what you're interested in doing is making sure that you get the taste and the quality that you're there. And that's why a lot of people make their own edibles. There's a very important process in making edibles, and that's something called decarboxylation. And what is that? That's a process that releases and triggers all of the cannabinoids, and especially the medical cannabinoids in cannabis. When cannabis is initially grown, it produces something called CBGA. And that CBGA will then morph into THCA, CBCA, CBDA, and CBCA. Now, these products, these THCAs, CBDAs, and CBCAs, can be used and are very effective for pain management, for inflammation, and are something that, for example, a lot of people who make cannabis on their own make these products so that they can be able to address the medical issue that they're trying to control without necessarily getting. But when you heat it, what it does is it produces that THCA becomes THC, CBDA becomes CBD, and CBCA. And so that produces the THC process that a lot of people want to be able to produce to address their pain management and their different medical. Why would we do that? Because what we want to do is trigger those cannabinoids that address our particular situation. And also, it also triggers the terpenes that are there. Now, decarboxylation will produce more cannabinoids, which is great. And it's done typically through heating and through triggering. And we'll talk about decarboxylation, how to do that in just a moment. But it also is something that's much more effective to use than vaping and smoking. Because what's interesting is when you're going through that process, when you're vaping and smoking, or actually converting those cannabinoids, the A versions of the cannabinoids into THC, CBD, and CBC, the problem is that heat that you're using to type that blunt, to smoke that joint, typically will burn off most of the cannabinoids. So if you're going to be able to want to use cannabis or smoke cannabis or use the flower products, I recommend using a dryer vaporizer. These are a couple that come from Stoke and Bickle. They're very expensive, but they're very effective. I just want to point out there are devices that are out there that are effective to use this way. Decarboxylation is very, very important to being able to get, again, that THC and CBD that you're looking for. Can raw cannabis be consumed? And the answer is absolutely. Patients really want to avoid a lot of that high, but they want to enjoy the terpenes and the flavonoids. They'll use and they'll eat raw cannabis. It can be used. It has vitamin C, vitamin K. There's a lot of calcium in there, and it has a lot of fiber. It's been used for centuries. The thing is about medical cannabis, when you do it, consume it raw, it'll work almost immediately, and it'll work between 2 to 6 hours. It's interesting that when you're taking raw cannabis, if it hasn't been heated, it hasn't been decarboxylated, so you're getting the THCA, CBCA, and CBDA. I recommend that if you're going to look at using raw cannabis, don't decarboxylate it. Use it raw and naturally, and you'll get a lot of interesting medical benefits that are there. Now, what you can do is you can actually infuse cannabis into a number of products. You've heard of tinctures that have been infused. And by the way, if you're undecarboxylating the product, you'll get those tinctures, again, that don't have that psychological or that psychic hallucinatory, stony type of effect that's there. But you will get a lot of the pain relief and the inflammation. Decarboxylated, you actually get a lot of the THC-rich edibles that are there, and they're consumed in the traditional dosing methods. Again, pay attention because these can last up to 10 hours, and it could take between 2 to 3 hours to work. Great for a good night's sleep, but pay attention to the timing. Take it an hour or two before you go to bed, if that's what you're planning to use it for, and being able to leave yourself a range of effectiveness like all night, that'll really, really work. And also what you want to do is you want to pay attention to the dosing that you're going to be using. Now, how does this all work? Well, when you have THC, when you have the product itself, and what you do is you now consume it. In other words, you're heating it. Let's say you use a joint or you actually have some sort of a pipe or you put it into a tincture. What it does, it converts the THCA to THC. That then travels through your bloodstream and that goes into your liver. It then converts the THC to what they call 11-hydroxy-THC. And that's what's the important part of using cannabis itself. It's this thing called THC COOH, which is important. It's called hydroxy-11-THC. What's the difference between eating and also smoking? Well, when you eat it, when you ingest it, it goes into your body, that 11-hydroxy-THC gets produced, and you notice the time frame. It works by being able to go into your liver and into your body. It's lasting a much longer period of time, and it's much stronger. It's a very effective way of using it. When you're smoking cannabis, it goes into your lungs, but it only lasts an hour or two, and then it falls. You'll notice there is hydroxy-11 that's actually produced, and it basically tapers down, and you have a lot less of it. So using an edible is much more effective for a long range of medication than using smoking. However, if you're vaping or smoking edibles, vaping or smoking cannabis, what happens is it's a very good for immediate short-term relief and for relief for the next. So it's something to pay attention to timing. And we hear about all this cooking stuff. Where do we find great recipes? Well, one of the things I recommend is Sherry Sicard. It's Cannabis Sherry. She does a great job. She has a cannabis cookbook, which I have and I've used. And by the way, she's offering a 20% discount by using Sherry 20 if you order it from her by going to Can Academy online. Great range of recipes. And have been tested, and they work. And she updates them. Also, take a look at her website. She has some free edibles, some free cookbooks that are out there. And she's very popular and does a lot of posting to Facebook as well as YouTube that are stories and cannabis recipes. Very credible source. Now, another credible sources are places like High Times has a cannabis cookbook, which you can download. It was made in 2017. 227 pages. Very, very interesting. And also Leafly has how to make edibles. It's an article that you can take a look at, and it's a guide to how to cook with medical cannabis. One of my favorite resources that I like to take a look at is YouTube. And on YouTube is an interesting link called Bong Appetit. This is marijuana Nona. Nona is a Italian name for grandmother. And what she does is she shows how to cook with cannabis. Now, she doesn't consume cannabis themselves, but she cooks with cannabis for her friends, their senior citizens that needed help being able to. And she does a highly effective job, and I highly recommend. Now, where do I get cannabis edibles from reliable sources? I recommend a couple of sources. One of them is a dispensary. They have a number of products that are out there. I'm not going to run through all of them because I'll let them walk you through the products and how they're really used. Key to using these products is all of the Air edibles have tinctures. And not only tinctures, they have terpenes in them. And they have COAs, certificates of analysis you can look at to know what you're buying. Not all dispensaries have terpenes in their edibles. And this is really important, and that's why I only recommend dispensaries that do that, and Air is one of them. The other is Cetera. Cetera does a great job. They have, whether they're talking about Heights, which are chocolates, or they have Juanas, which are your gummies and things, they do a great job, and of course they make their own product. All of these, again, have terpenes in these edibles, and that's what's important to understand. They're high-quality products that are out there that'll do the job for you. What are really some of the tips? Pay attention to packaging. When you're looking at the edible, make sure that it has the terpenes that you're looking for, and make sure that it does, in fact, match or set up or align with the condition that you're trying to address. The other thing is pay attention to the amount of dosing that you're using. More than 10 milligrams of THC is a lot. And unless you're experienced with cannabis, I recommend staying in the 1 to 5 milligram range until you know what your tolerance is to cannabis. And we'll talk about dosing in just a minute. But this is really, really important to do that. And also pay attention, let the cannabis that you're taking, the gummies that you're taking, let them work for at least 2 hours. And the nice part about gummies is you can usually, or you get a lot of edibles, you can cut them in half, you can cut them in quarters, and you can test them. So you can actually find your therapeutic dosing level and being able to go low and go slow, which is really, really important. Now, we talked about that because what you may want to do is take that gummy, take that edible, cut it in half, try it, wait 2 hours. You'll find that you should be getting some relief, and if not, then you can up your dose. But again, wait the 2 hours before you do that, because if you start taking too much of it, you may actually get that anxiety, that intoxicated feeling, that mobility feeling that you really don't want to have. And that's where we need to find. Typically, people use about a half of the brownie, about a half of the gummy, about a half of the cookie, and they'll find that usually works fairly well. But again, try it yourself. Everybody has different tolerance levels. And again, I really highly recommend that you stay in the less than 5 milligram categories down here, because that'll help you be able to figure out what your tolerance is to cannabis. Once you understand that, you can experiment by increasing the amount of CBD or THC, but really pay attention to the amount that you're taking, especially with edibles. Start low and go slow. And if you really want to understand how edibles are affecting you, here's a quick self-guide. Pay attention, just journal, and find out what product you're using, how much dose, the time you took it, when you feel it, and also the effects. This will be very important to help you understand how to use it, when to use it, and what it's good for. Again, this gets you into your understanding, your dosing guide, and your tolerance levels. I want to thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you've got something out of this. Edibles are really important. Timing is critical, and it's something that can be used very effectively. But again, start low, go slow, and you'll be able to have a very good edibles experience. Don't pop these things like Skittles, because it's not going to give you the effect that you want to have. I want to thank you all for joining me for this video. Please pay attention again to our YouTube channel, Marijuana Aware, and also our webinars that are coming up. We have webinars in the future, one coming up for veterans and first responders on March 19th. Please join us for that. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope we can help you get your life back.